that calculation is simply an aggregation of all the engineering estimates that were done before the policies were enacted. So it's not an ex post analysis, even though it looks like one in print.
So it's kind of like a promise that I'm going to win the Super Bowl before the Super Bowl is played.
Right, and then afterwards you claim credit for having won the Super Bowl no matter what happened.
We also got in touch with Hal Harvey, who's the CEO of a clean energy firm called Energy Innovation. Levinson had asked the firm to review a draft of the paper we're talking about today. As you may have figured by now, a firm like Energy Innovation wasn't so enthusiastic about Levinson's conclusion, and they critiqued his methodology as well. Here's a statement that Harvey sent us. Quote, California building codes are the most advanced in the world. They've saved consumers tens of billions of dollars in reduced energy waste and ushered in terrific products. Super efficient windows, new HVAC systems, advanced lighting, and more. Furthermore, as Hal Harvey wrote to us, Levinson's analysis unfortunately fails at the basic task to measure heating energy in buildings, which is astonishing since that is the main purpose of building codes. His paper does not distinguish between different uses of electricity, uses a poor surrogate for climate conditions, and comes up with results that don't support in any way his headlines. Now, Harvey's firm, as he wrote to us, laid out a careful set of recommendations for Dr. Levinson to upgrade his analysis, and Levinson, in our interview, noted that he is looking over Harvey's recommendations. His paper is a working paper, that's why he sent it out to review, including to people like Harvey, who inevitably may dislike its conclusions. That said, Arik Levinson has confidence in his conclusions. As he wrote to us, in response to Hal Harvey's response, I don't dispute that California's building codes may have ushered in terrific new products and made heating, cooling, and lighting less expensive for homeowners. That's not what my paper is about. My paper, and others like it, provide mounting evidence that these types of regulations don't reduce energy consumption or pollution nearly as much as promised, if even at all. So coming up on Freakonomics Radio, if energy efficiency regulations don't really save energy, should we banish them entirely?
No.
And why is energy efficiency such a big piece of U.S. energy policy anyway?
This administration is merely following the will of Congress. And since this president is facing a Congress that doesn't seem to be willing to take legislative action on climate change, this is one of the biggest and only policy levers that this president has.
Freakonomics is supported by Fracture, creating contemporary photo decor by printing their customers' photos directly on glass. A Fracture is image, frame, and mount all in one, available in a selection of square and rectangle sizes. Learn more at fracture.me.
I'm Stephen Dubner. On the next Freakonomics Radio, we look at energy efficiency laws.
The California Energy Commission projected at the time that homes built after the standards were enacted would use 80% less energy.
What actually happened? That's next time on Freakonomics Radio. This afternoon at 4 on 93.9 FM, WNYC.
WNYC receives support from Geico, offering motorcycle and RV insurance. More information on motorcycle and RV insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO. WNYC salutes the arts. Join us in supporting cultural organizations, including Voices of Gotham, a nonprofit men's a cappella chorus that celebrates barbershop harmony through musical excellence and community, and Brooklyn Children's Theater, an organization that provides a nurturing environment for musical theater to be performed for children by children from all socioeconomic backgrounds. For more information about the Support the Arts program, visit wnyc.org/star. WNYC, public radio supported by you.
From WNYC Studios, this is Freakonomics Radio. Here's your host, Stephen Dubner.
All right, so if you are an environmental economist like Art Levinson of Georgetown, and you do this painstaking analysis of energy efficiency regulations and find that they don't save anywhere near the energy they promise, does this mean you think that such regulations are bad policy?
No. And in fact, I'm happy that there are energy efficiency regulations for new buildings. Just like I'm happy there are fire codes and electric wiring codes and plumbing codes for new buildings, because as a homeowner, when I go buy a house, I can't see all those things. I'm not informed enough to know whether my builder has cut corners or skimped on safety or energy efficiency details. I can't look behind the walls and see the insulation. And so those regulations have a solid economic purpose and a solid purpose in real estate markets, but they don't necessarily save energy.
So talk to me about response that you've gotten, whether from industry, from government, from colleagues, and so on.
So energy efficiency is kind of a sacred cow among environmentalists. And I think that just like there's environmentalists worry that there's a head in the sand denialism among climate change deniers who say, I don't care what the scientific evidence says, it's cold where I am, so there really can't be climate change. There's a parallel sort of a head in the sand denialism among environmentalists that say, I don't care what the evidence is about energy efficiency. Intuitively, it makes sense that it would work. The engineers have said it's going to save 80%. How can it not? And so let's impose these policies. We're going to have people save money. They're going to reduce pollution, and everybody will be better off. And my paper's not alone. There is mounting evidence that these policies don't deliver on their promises. And so to ignore that evidence is to suggest we're enacting a bunch of policies, patting ourselves on the back for achieving our climate goals while the Earth continues to warm and carbon emissions continue to increase.
Talk to me for a minute about, let's assume that your findings are correct and true. Is it that with a more energy efficient home and or appliance that I just use a lot more? Is it that people are building bigger homes generally and that's part of the issue? Is it that we have more appliances than we used to, et cetera? So talk about the different ways in which energy consumption hasn't fallen despite the regulations.
Sure. I mean, the first thing I'll do is be humble and say that it may be that my findings are not true. This is a very difficult question, and all I've done is poke the data in a variety of different ways and haven't been able to find it. And so I think one of the important takeaways from this is that this is a really difficult question and we shouldn't be glib about how hard it is. Okay, but you asked, suppose my findings are true. If my findings are true and energy efficiency mandates don't reduce electricity consumption by homes in California, there are a couple of reasons why that might be the case. The problem with energy efficiency for cars or for homes, for air conditioners, is that energy efficiency makes doing the activities that cause the problems in the first place cheaper. So if we put a tax on gasoline or a tax on electricity that made emitting carbon more costly, people might respond in a couple of ways. They might drive less, they might invest in more energy efficient vehicles, engineers might innovate to develop more energy efficient technologies, and that would be energy efficiency responding to what is the true price of driving and what is the true price of using air conditioning. But if you try to short circuit that mechanism and mandate the energy efficiency directly without the rise in price, then all you've done is make it less expensive for people to drive and make it less expensive for people to use their air conditioners. And it makes sense that people will do more of both.
So let's say for the average concerned and informed or misinformed citizen listening to you, you could probably understand how they might just throw up their hands and say, what am I supposed to do? I try to be a good citizen. I try to be one of many good citizens trying to pick the low-hanging fruit, trying to waste less, pollute less. I learn about negative externalities. I try to produce fewer of them if possible. But your message is, I don't want to say hopeless, but it's a little bit of a downer.
Look, carbon emissions are a global problem, and there's 7 billion people on the planet. What can you, Stephen Dubner, do to reduce climate change? I think nothing, except advocate for public policies that make sense. I believe that climate change is a very simple economic problem, and it's a very difficult political problem. The simple economic solution is let's raise the cost of doing things that emit carbon. This is something that conservative economists agree with, liberal economists agree with, Democrat economists agree with, Republican economists agree with. It's not rocket science. It's difficult politically. It's not difficult in terms of economic policy.
On this point, Levinson knows whereof he speaks, at least a little bit. In 2010 and 2011, he worked for the Council of Economic Advisors under President Obama as a senior economist for environmental issues.
So the Council of Economic Advisors was set up in the Truman administration as the president's sort of in-house think tank, meant to be sort of non-political, academic, economic advice for the president. And I think it's a terrific, good government institution. All of the staff, like me, typically come from leaves of absence from universities. So our college professors who take time off to go work for the government. And because they're on leave from universities, they can say things inside the White House behind closed doors that are politically unpopular. If asked to say something that's politically popular but academically or economically questionable, a CEA chairman will have to balance that against his or her career in academic economics and can say to the president or the president's people, we can't say that, it's not quite true. It means that we're not steeped in the institutional details of every policy, but it also means that we have license to relitigate issues that have come and gone, and it means that we have license to say, well, I don't like that idea. If you think I'm speaking out of turn, fire me. I have a better job back home.
One of the ideas that Levinson didn't like so much, or at least found suspect, was the administration's heavy reliance on energy efficiency, perhaps at the expense of energy policies and economists might find much more effective, like the carbon tax.
I think it's safe to say that energy efficiency mandates have become the centerpiece of U.S. climate policy. If you ask an Obama administration official about what this administration has done for the environment or for global climate change, the answer will come in form of the long list of energy efficiency regulations that the DOT, EPA, and Department of Energy have passed. And that's for a very good reason, which is that back in 2007, President Bush signed into law an act of Congress that gave the Department of Transportation, Energy, and Environmental Protection Agency the authority to regulate energy efficiency of appliances in cars and trucks. In fact, it required them to do that. And so all the Obama administration
That was the Energy and Security Act you're talking about?
Right, Energy Independence and Security Act of 2007, EISA. This administration is merely following the will of Congress. And since this president is facing a Congress that doesn't seem to be willing to take legislative action on climate change, this is one of the biggest and only policy levers that this president has. So executive agencies can regulate energy efficiency without going to Congress for new laws.
So you're saying energy efficiency becomes a centerpiece because the other pieces are just off the table legislatively, yes? Politically.
I think that's right in the case of the president and this administration. But it's been true for a long time, and it's true at the state level, and it's true when Congress has acted. For example, in 2009, when the House of Representatives did pass an economy-wide federal cap and trade plan that never got passed by the Senate, but it passed the House of Representatives in 2009, that devoted a lot of its energy to energy efficiency mandates.
This is fascinating, to me at least. As Arik Levinson tells us, we've become obsessed with energy efficiency, dependent on energy efficiency, primarily because it's the only energy policy that's really been advanced, even though it's not very effective. And it's not very effective for a simple behavioral reason, what economists call the rebound effect, which means that as it becomes cheaper and easier to use something, I probably use more of it. So if I build a house with solar panels and I drive a Prius, I'm gaining all this energy efficiency. I can also afford to run my hot tub all the time. Maybe have a couple extra refrigerators in the garage, a deep freezer. You know how I know that so many people are obsessed with energy efficiency? It's because of the emails that you send us with questions that I can't answer, but hopefully Arik Levinson can. So I asked him to answer one of the most common emails we get. So here's the question. If your goal is overall energy conservation, what's better? To use a coffee mug that gets washed after each use, or at least after several uses, or the throwaway coffee cup? So we've been trained to think that anything disposable is an environmental sin. But it seems as if it's pretty efficient to throw things away if you do it right these days. Whereas if you wash that mug repeatedly, you're paying for the energy to heat the water, maybe heat the dishwasher, to manufacture the soap, to say nothing of all the water you use in washing. Then you have to dispose of the soap afterwards. So, Arik, what'll it be, at least for you, throwaway cup or a coffee mug?
I don't know the answer to that question. But I will say that there's environmental economists and environmentalists. And one of the things that environmentalists have focused on, I think to the detriment of the environment, is landfill space. So using space in landfills is not an environmental problem. We have plenty of space in the United States. And so if that's part of the cost of using a disposable coffee cup, that's not a big cost to me.
Right.
So I would want to compare the pollution associated with generating the disposable cup versus the pollution associated with washing the clean one. And that seems doable. I just haven't done it.
If you get around to that, can I give you another one to solve?
Yes.
That we also get asked, which is paper towels versus electric hand dryers in restrooms. People are really puzzled by that one.
When I had babies, I did the research. I looked at the research
diaper,
into
you did the
disposable
diaper?
diapers.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And my favorite quote from that, it will tie all these together. So I went to the library and I looked up papers on disposable diapers versus cloth diapers. And the problem is a lot of the papers are written and paid for by Procter & Gamble, which is in the disposable diaper industry. So I don't know what to make of all of it. But my favorite quote from all of this came from Betty Friedan, who said she would rather help the environment by not using disposable coffee mugs and pouring the scalding hot coffee directly into her hands than use cloth diapers.
And is that the advice that you and your family followed then?
We did not pour scalding hot coffee into our hands.
Okay.